Most people, when they start making excuses, most of the time they make excuses that people will agree with, thinking, well, this is legit, but they don't go to that area of all the time that they've wasted or all the real reasons they didn't accomplish the mission.
Having an excuse for the behavior doesn't excuse the behavior. So particularly when we find ourselves in that pattern of always coming up with an excuse, then it's time to really evaluate the goals that we have, and B, the behaviors that are preventing us from reaching them. I mean, we've just passed Thanksgiving week and there were a lot of people who didn't have some discipline last week.
Talking about some news I forgot to share. I meant to share right off the top that you have talked me into getting on TikTok. You've been talking about it for a while, but anyway, Ria's got me on. I think I got on. Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. Or if you're watching on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel, thanks for watching. And we got a lot of playlists there, so be sure to check them out. Got my amazing wife, Ria, with me today. She's going to show out. I know she will. She's always got some good wisdom and good thoughts, and I like having her on. We're going to try to do more of those, especially coming in 2026. So thanks for joining me today, Ria.
Absolutely. We always have fun, don't we?
Yep. And so this episode's inspired by Jocko Willink. A lot of people know him, former Navy SEAL commander, and he's written a few books, several books. He got all kind of stuff going on. I learned a lot about him. I had this past week, over multiple days, I watched like a 6-hour interview with Jocko on the Sean Ryan show. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's got a YouTube channel. He does a lot of long form interviews. They may be 1, 2, 3 hours. This one I saw it with Jocko. I saw 6 hours. I was like, man, I'm gonna learn some stuff about Jocko because I really like him and the way he leads. And it's like we say, Ria, principles are principles. They apply everywhere, right?
Yeah, but 6 hours is a long podcast.
Yeah, a lot of stuff though. I got a lot of nuggets out of watching that. A lot of stories that I'll share about him in the future. And he's got this line or quote or slogan, whatever you want to call it. He says it quite often. He said it on that show, and I think he uses it to promote some of his products. And he says, discipline equals freedom. And so today, that's what's kind of inspiring this episode. We're just speaking off the cuff. We don't even know what we're going to talk about other than that. We always know what we're going to talk about, but we don't know what we're going to say about it, right?
Yeah, sure. But that's a pretty powerful quote.
What's it mean to you?
Well, I think it means first and foremost is we have to discipline ourselves now in order to have the freedom that we want tomorrow, right? And that applies in so many dimensions of life. Health comes to mind. I mean, we've just passed Thanksgiving week and there were a lot of people who didn't have some discipline last week. And so now they don't have the freedom that they want today. Maybe they overindulge to the point that this week they're having to buy another pant size, right? I mean, discipline equals freedom. So if you did exercise discipline relative to eating healthy and not overindulging in the dressing and pecan pie last week, then you have the freedom that you want this week. So we could apply this to so many dimensions of life, but personal growth, right? Discipline to develop myself today so I have freedom and options tomorrow.
Absolutely. That's a good one. When you tie those two together, because that's something I talk about all the time, freedom and options. I always say most people want security and stability. That's what they want. But what they need is freedom and options. Security and stability. You might be living an unhappy life in an unhappy job, all kind of unhappy situations. You may have security and stability. But that stability is really kind of a false belief.
You could have stability and security in jail. That does not mean you have freedom and options.
That's right, Ria. That's true, ain't it? You could be in a one-man cell and you'd have plenty of security and stability, but life wouldn't be good, would it?
No.
And I know a lot of people, they're not in the job they want, or they're not in living the life they want, or they're not making the income they want. And when you talk about Jocko's line there, discipline equals freedom, and that's what's missing out of their life. Instead of a lot of discipline, they got a lot of excuses. And excuses aren't going to take you where you want to go. You got to develop that mental discipline to do whatever it is you got to do. And to me, character development, as we're always talking about, character development is the root cause of a lack of discipline is found in a lack of character. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, and as I'm listening to you say that, I always like to say you can make something happen or you can make an excuse, but you can't make it happen while you're making the excuse. And yeah, ultimately it comes down to developing our character because is it Henry Cloud who said character is the ability to meet the demands of reality?
Absolutely. And that's what we got to do. What's some of your thoughts on that, on just on what we've been talking about so far?
Well, I mean, when I talk about in the ladder of influence, first step on the ladder of influence is control of self, and the next step is character development. Because if I want more freedom and options in life, I've got to have more influence with other people, but I've also got to have the ability to lead myself first, right? Mastering that leadership of self, the discipline, if you will, development of character and discipline, so that I can lead me first. And that's going to result in more influence with other people, more influence with the boss at work or my coworkers at work, right? That's going to start with how do I lead myself in the workplace? More freedom and options in career opportunities. That's going to be, directly tied to have I developed myself. I mean, you and I both worked full time and went to college to get a degree. And that took a lot of discipline. It was a lot of
You got a lot of you
sacrifice.
got a lot of degrees, real.
but But at the end of the day, that discipline to give up the fun things, to give up the weekends and staying and, studying every night or or all day Saturdays for many years, that discipline equaled freedom and options later in career opportunities, right? So the degree opens the door. So there again, this just applies to so many dimensions of life. I think the trick that is that discipline's not any fun. Freedom is fun, but discipline is not any fun because discipline means saying no to yourself now so that you can have something you want later. And that I remember reading about, they call it delayed gratification. And you've probably read some of the same stories, but they did like this research study on a group of toddlers. And it was something like, I'm probably not getting all the details right, but it was something like, they'd bring a group of toddlers in one at a time and they'd be like, put a cookie in front of the 2-year-old or 3-year-old and say, if you can not eat the cookie now, I'll give you 2 cookies later. And then they would leave the room, like the adult would leave the room and they would watch to see, did the kid eat the cookie, right? Some of them did, some of them didn't. But the interesting thing about that was the ones who could restrain themselves and delay that gratification to, hey, I cannot eat this cookie and have 2 cookies later, they were more successful throughout their life. Like there was a direct correlation between the ability to say no to myself now so that I could have something I want later and these kids who could do that at 2 and 3 years old, right? So fascinating from the concept of it's something that absolutely we have to master. And the earlier we understand that concept, the easier it is to apply it.
Yep, and we've heard it, read it. I don't even remember where now, but discipline is giving yourself a command and following through on it.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I just give a shout out to Chad Cox. I don't know if he'd be listening today or at any time, but I know he follows us. He's read a lot of our books, and since he discovered, I think he discovered us. I don't even remember how, but he took off into my blue collar leadership books, the blue collar leadership leading from the front lines, and blue collar leadership and supervision, unleash your team's potential. And I mean, he started learning those principles. He took some of our online courses. I know you've been showing some of the online courses down below, and he's taken some of them. I see he's been doing some courses with Jocko and other folks, and he's always sharing some kind of certificate or something he's done, and
He's
he
growing.
developed a lot of discipline. He got that bug, and let me just interrupt myself. I see you got the scroll going down there about our merch, and you've been working a lot on our merch. You want to
I
share a little bit
have.
about what's out there and that sort of thing?
Well, we've had a lot of people over the years who wanted, particularly, those people who have just so much pride in having that blue collar leadership mentality, right? And we've had, I mean, I remember being at one facility and like someone was admiring our backpacks and they were like, "Can we get one of those?" And at the time, we didn't really have a way for people to do that. And it was kind of some early attempts that we tried to figure out a reliable and a quality provider that would do like print on demand merchandise. And so this year was the year we finally were able to find someone who, really good quality and pretty timely, and who could produce those, products that just people like to just say, "Hey, I'm proud to be a blue collar leader. I'm proud to be a, a blue collar worker." And so, yeah, we've been working on a lot of good options for that: t-shirts, some hoodies, things like that. And then I started working on sort of a line for the ladies, right? Because one of the things I like to just, put on there as a slogan is that I I would bet that every blue collar wife out there spends some time in just praying for, the safety of her husband to come home at night, right?
They do a lot of dangerous jobs, blue
They
collar
do a lot of
folks.
dangerous jobs. Yeah, so yeah, working on some a few pieces for the ladies too, to just say, "Hey, proud of him," and praying over his protection.
Yeah, so if you're listening, you go to bluecollarleadership.com/store, STORE, and you can find a lot of other stuff, but you'll see there's a couple of different thumbnails for merch, right? You got three different thumbnails for the merch, Rio. You can share about what those three are, or is it two?
Something like that. We've got a specific category for trades gear. So, someone who drives a track hoe, there's a t-shirt specific for a track hoe or a dozer, right? So we've got some gear
A
for the
welder.
trades kind of category, welder. So if you're specific in an industry like that and you want to be very, again, very unique in that t-shirt or hoodie or whatever. And then we just have, blue collar leadership gear. We got shirts with the flag on them, that sort of thing, hats, things like that.
Tumbler.
And
Got
then,
some tumblers and
yep,
some stickers, some kind of stuff
yep,
like that.
all
Some
kind
bigger
of stuff like
stickers.
that.
Y-
Yep.
And then you got one more section.
Well, I've got
I'm talking
inspirational
about
gifts
for the
for
spiritual stuff. You got some.
women. Uh-huh. Yep, inspirational gifts for ladies. And there again, a lot of those are going to be faith-based, but like the sweatshirts with I use for Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, the butterfly, right? Representing that transformation. And so some Bible verses, the things that inspire me. Those are kind of the things that I put out there because I think if they resonate with me, they probably resonate with other women too.
Okay. While we're talking about some news, I forgot to share. I meant to share right off the top that you have talked me into getting on TikTok.
Well, I didn't do any talking. Now that's the most interesting.
You've been
I
talking
think you
about it.
should share the full story there.
You've been talking about it for a while, but anyway, Ria's got me on. I think I got on there November 18th, so I've been putting out 3 or 4 uh, TikTok videos on different things. There'll be more of my personal stuff there. There's still the leadership stuff. There'll be a lot of little short video clips, 15 seconds, 20, 30 seconds, some of them a minute or so, but just a lot of content, a lot of memes. Like I said, a lot of personal stuff. I'll share a little more personal stuff there than in most places because I think kind of fits there. But I know there's a lot of young folks there, so it'll be awesome to maybe get some of those young folks following, and I know some of the old folks like me have started getting on there too. So that must mean all the young folks are somewhere else now. We're just late to the party. But
There's a new social app every single day, it seems like.
yeah, so you can find me there at the blue collar leadership. That's or look up my name. I guess I'm not really even sure how to use it. I don't look at it. I don't look at the other stuff on it. I just put my stuff on there and turn it off pretty much. And you're on there too now, right, Ria?
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I have been, but like you being a little more intentional with putting content there, than the last several years.
Yeah, if you're on TikTok and you want a nice steady little leadership drip, get on there and follow me, follow Ria. But I'll be dropping out, like I said, multiple things a day, 3, 4 times a day throughout the day. So a lot of stuff there. People seem to like a lot of stuff, so that fits my personality. I got lots of stuff to share and little nuggets, little leadership nuggets, what I call them. So be a lot of that. What you laughing at, Ria?
You just have a lot to say. I think it's a great fit.
So let's start talking about some excuses again. We were on that subject talking about discipline equals freedom from Jocko, and he told a story in there. I'll just share it here in that 6-hour interview I watched over multiple days. he shared a story about when something went wrong when he was in Iraq leading the SEAL teams, and something went wrong, and they were they had some friendly fire on
Mm,
each other, call it blue on blue, and they were they it was all done. Everybody survived. One person got injured pretty good, but no one got killed in that incident. But he was talking about because it was blue on blue, friendly fire going on. There was an investigation into it, obviously, and so when he got back, he was preparing for his leaders to come in and do the investigation and things like that. And he was sitting there, and I guess it was an hour, 30 minutes or an hour before he's actually supposed to meet with him, and he was still trying to get himself ready to go. And he realized what he was trying to do is figure out who to blame. There's
mm,
always got to be somebody to blame, and he was trying to figure out who do I blame, and he just said the feeling of disgust come over him. That was his exact words. He said, it's pretty powerful to watch that clip. I'm sure they'll make some shorts out of it or something, but it was pretty powerful. But he said, I just felt disgust. It just came all over me because I realized I was responsible. He
mm.
was looking for somebody to blame, and he was responsible. That's why, he wrote the book Extreme Ownership. That's what he's talking about, taking
Sure.
responsibility. And he went in and told him it was his fault. And he had the whole team in there. They all had to be there together to talk. I mean, I think it was 30 or 40 Navy SEALs there in the room when they were being investigated. And what was cool was he was talking about multiple different people were trying to take ownership. They were all saying it was their fault and it was their fault. And they may have had a role in it, but ultimately he said, I'm the leader. It's my fault. And when we
Mhm.
talk about discipline equals freedom, that's one context. Discipline as a leader, discipline means the discipline to take responsibility every time, no matter what happens. If you're the leader, you're the leader. You're responsible. But a lot of times people want to dodge responsibility and cast blame and try to look good. And Jocko was talking about, they've been in that situation before when he was on the other side. He was on the team and they had a leader and
Mm.
something went wrong, and then that leader did cast the blame to somebody on the team. And he said it didn't build trust, it created disgust. Everybody felt disgusted by the leader. And so he made sure he didn't want to be that guy. It was pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a powerful reminder, right? I mean, when you're the leader, you gotta take that leadership responsibility because you are the leader. That's what leadership is taking that responsibility, taking that ownership. And that does, yeah, that's hard to do, right? It's easy to blame other people. That comes naturally to us as humans. It's easy to blame other people because as long as it's someone else's fault, I don't have to do anything to fix it. And the moment I take responsibility, I've got to take ownership and saying, I need to do something to fix it. And that, yeah, that's hard to do. It's hard to do as an individual. It's hard to do as a leader.
Yeah. So another situation just from my life this week. There's someone I've been mentoring for a while, and uh, doesn't matter what their name is because I'm not trying to blame them. I'm just trying to use a story from my life. It actually happened today, and just talk about taking responsibility, not making excuses, that sort of stuff. But this person, they've been working on a project for a while, and they asked me to hold them accountable, that sort of thing. So I reach out, check on the progress, that sort of stuff. And when I reached out this week, hadn't really made any progress for several weeks, and told me basically they texted me back and gave me a list of things that
Mm.
stopped them from doing the project.
Yeah.
And it
I
was good things. It was the family. It was, parental responsibilities. It was work responsibilities. All those things that I would agree with 100%. And you would
mm,
too. And anybody who knows about leading your life well know those things are important and those are priorities. What's interesting, and I didn't go here with this person because it didn't matter, but I use it in this lesson for those of you that may be listening. What was interesting though is the person didn't tell me the things that they actually did that wasted their time over these past weeks. Because I guarantee you they did. Because that's what people do. We waste a lot of time. I was I made actually a TikTok I was editing a video a minute ago from a past video, chopping it up into little pieces for the little TikTok videos. But
Mm.
I was sharing a quote there from Jim Rohn, Rohn, for the folks that don't know Jim Rohn. But I did a podcast about this before, but I'll throw it in right here because it was a quote that I was sharing with him, and he was talking about it ain't the cost of the TV that's the problem. It's the cost of watching the TV.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's just a big thing that I see a lot of people. I remember our son Eric back when we were doing different things together, and he was supposed to be making something happen, and I'd ask, "How come you didn't do it?" He said, "Well, had to sleep. Okay, got to sleep. Had to go to the gym. Okay, I'll give you physical fitness, that sort of stuff. Different things like that. Telling me the things that I would agree with, but he didn't tell me the things that I wouldn't agree with that was happening. And all I'm saying there, I'm just giving a few examples. But most people, when they start making excuses, most of the time they make excuses that people will agree with, thinking, well, this is legit. But they don't go to that area of all the time that they've wasted or all the real reasons they didn't accomplish the mission. I'm late. I'm late for work. Something happened in traffic. I could be late for work because I didn't get up 10 minutes earlier than I should have, so I could be there 10 minutes early instead of being
Mm.
there at the last minute, right? But people come in, they start talking about traffic. When somebody's late for work, they usually hardly ever does anybody walk into work and say I'm late because I chose not to get up early enough today. I didn't plan ahead. The truth. Usually we start making these excuses.
Yeah, and I think that things happen in life, right? I mean,
Yep.
that that is just that's part of life. But particularly when we find ourselves with a pattern of making an excuses for behavior, having an excuse for the behavior doesn't excuse the behavior. So, particularly when we find ourselves in that pattern of always coming up with an excuse, then it's time to really evaluate the goals that we have, and b the behaviors that are preventing us from reaching them.
Yep. When you think about somebody being late for work, imagine you're the boss and two people come in. Both of them both of them kind of live in the same area, so they're coming the same way. And so they both hit the same traffic jam, right? Both of them both of them ended up being late. And one of them comes in moaning groaning about the traffic jam. The other one comes in and says, "Yeah, there was a traffic jam, but that ain't why I was late. I was late because I didn't get up early enough, to deal with these kind of issues." So,
Mm.
which one's going to build the most trust? The one that's trying to take responsibility. The leaders are going to understand normally this person's not late. There was a traffic jam. Ain't a big deal. But the point is, how am I framing it?
Mm.
Am I looking for excuses or am I attempting to take responsibility? And just because you take responsibility don't mean there was other things that caused you to not meet the deadline or not to show up
Right.
on time or not to accomplish the mission. There's all type of external forces at play, but high impact people just look for, how was I responsible? Regardless of what else happened, how was I responsible? So get back. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add to that. It's kind of like Stephen Covey's, right? Being proactive and focusing on the things that you can control. You can't control traffic, but you can control, getting up a little earlier. um, and they're proactive people focus on what they can do instead of focusing on the other factors that they can't control. And when you do that, you find that there is more that you can control. So it gives you greater options. Again, not making the excuses for the things that we can't fix or control, or the things that happen, but, well, what should I have done differently, or what can I do differently next time? That means those external factors are less influential in my life.
Yeah, like we see it in blue collar space. I mean, a lot of people sometimes, and rightfully so, they don't feel like they're being compensated. They ain't getting paid
Mm.
what they're worth, but they go in there every day and accept the pay that they think is too low. And then you hear them complain about the boss or the company or the organization. And instead of getting off work and going to do something to grow and develop themselves so they become more valuable, to someone else. Maybe this company doesn't see them as any more valuable. Maybe I need to go develop myself. Maybe I got plenty of development. Maybe I got plenty of experience. Maybe it's a courage thing. I need to have the courage to go find a new job. But see, a lot of people don't like change.
Mm,
So they don't walk in and say, I'm getting paid this because I don't like change. They walk in and want to blame the boss for not paying them or the company for
sure.
not paying them. But we're responsible for what we're going to get paid.
Ultimately, absolutely. You know, the only one who can make a difference or a change in your life is you at the end of the day.
Yep. So if you're watching the video, Ria's got a banner down at the bottom about our downloading our free chapters from our books. bluecollarleadership.com/download. Go check that out. There's a button to find Ria's books, but you can find most of my books, most of her books there. And usually there's 10, 15, sometimes 20 pages from a single book that you can read. So you can preview those books. Even if you don't buy the books, read a little bit from all of them, Ria. You get some nuggets. Somebody get some nuggets out of those. But and Ria's, you can go straight to hers is riastory.com/download. riastory.com/download. And start developing yourself. Like we talk about discipline. I started reading in 2008 every day, 17 years. It takes a lot of discipline to do that every day, but I don't do it
When
all
you don't
day.
like to read.
Yeah, especially when you don't like to read, right? But everybody, I can make an excuse or I can make something happen, and I like to make stuff happen. So you got any thoughts before we wrap up this episode? We just bouncing around, throwing all kind of little nuggets out to folks.
No, I think you covered it pretty well, right? It's important to just reflect again on those areas that we want to be more responsible for, right? Where do I want more discipline in my life? And when you build that in one dimension of life, that will help you. It will translate to some degree in other dimensions of life. So I always encourage people to just start small when it comes to discipline is small goals for yourself, small commitments to yourself, and reach those, get those done, right? The smaller they are, the easier it is, and the easier it is, the more successful you'll be, which builds up a track record of success, integrity with yourself. And that is going to allow you to take on bigger and bigger things.
Yep. And I always say, don't focus on the mountain ahead when you got a big challenge. Don't be aware of the mountain ahead, but don't focus on the mountain ahead. Focus on the moment. And if you conquer the moment, each moment, eventually you'll conquer the mountain. And
Mm,
same thing you just said, saying it in a different way. Don't focus on the mountain, focus on the moment, conquer each moment. You'll eventually conquer the mountain. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up today, Ria, for this episode.
yep.
Hope everyone found some value in it. Few little different nuggets there, but just remind you again of Jocko's quote: "Discipline equals freedom." What is it you need to stop talking about and start doing? 2026 is coming. I don't know how the 2025 is wrapping up for you, but you get a redo in 2026 if you can keep waking up. That's a challenge in itself sometime, Real.
Yes. Yes, it is.
All right. Talk to you next time.